Apostles in our first reading gives us just a slightly different final words of Jesus from what we heard in the Gospel of Matthew. But in the Acts of the Apostles account, the things that Jesus says is to his apostles and followers who are there, you will be my witnesses to Jerusalem, even to the ends of the earth. You will be my witnesses. There's a strange part of canon law. I'm sure you all read it regularly. But I was reading over it a couple of years ago about the section on what canon law asks of pastors, of parishes. I think it was maybe when I was preparing to come here or getting ready to be pastor at Annunciation. I can't remember. But anyway, it was several years ago. And it was really the first time that I noticed that there's a section where canon law asks for 12 things for pastors to do. And I was really surprised. There were some interesting things, some things that one might not think of. One of those things that jumped out at me when I came across it says that pastors are to foster and lead processions outside the walls of the church, out into the local community. Pastors are to lead processions. I've done that. I had done that a couple of times. We had a Corpus Christi procession here last year. We've had one or two at Annunciation, but I wouldn't have probably picked that if you'd asked me to pick what are your top 12 most important things for pastors to do. I probably wouldn't have put processions outside the walls of the church as one of the top 12 things, and yet there it is, leading processions. And so it's interesting that a really fascinating story about that happened about 6 weeks ago, the weekend after Easter, is Divine Mercy Sunday. And I had been seeing other churches and people and priests talking about, we're going to do a Divine Mercy procession that Sunday at our church, and we're going to, it's like, and then that canon law thing that I had heard about fostering devotions to the processions kind of was like, the Holy Spirit was like whispering that in my ear. And I was like, oh, no, I don't know. There's 1,000 reasons not to. What people think you're strange. It's not a great time on a Sunday afternoon. There's 1,000 things, and reasons that I was writing it off. And some of it was like, pretending that, well, it's really for the best. These people out in the community are going to be like, what are these guys doing? This is so weird. So it's like, well, I don't really want to, I don't want to do that. But the Holy Spirit was just like, canon law, 12. And not that it was beating me over the head with canon law. It was an invitation. It was an invitation. I felt like I was supposed to do it. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So we, had a flyer and announced it, and we had about 30 people from both parishes come. We're currently, not in our church at Annunciation, so we just had one here. Fascinating thing happened when we had our Divine Mercy procession about 6 weeks ago. It only lasted about 10 minutes. We went out and went just on the sidewalk and went around, literally just walked around the square on the sidewalks and then came back. It probably wasn't even 10 minutes. And as we did, we had I was in my cope and carrying the Blessed Sacrament in a monstrance, and we had the canopy over that. If you've never seen a procession, we had a couple servers. And then we had 30 or 40 that were with us, and we were singing the Divine Mercy Chaplet. And there was only about 4 people that I saw out in the entirety of our 8 minutes or so. I'm sure there was other people that saw us, from their cars or from the stores or shops. But there were 4 people, and all 4 of them took pictures. And it wasn't like you could just tell. You can tell when someone's taking a picture because they think someone's a freak show. They're like, oh my gosh, It was this reverent. They were taking a picture, you could tell, because they thought it was awesome. And in fact, so we didn't publicize it in any way. I didn't even think about publicizing it, to the press or anything like that. Hey, we're going to do a procession. One of the 4 people was a reporter for the Banner Graphic. And he took 200 pictures. I felt like I was Kim Kardashian. He was literally running around like in front, and then it was, oh yeah, okay. And then he was like trying to get it on one knee, and then he'd run over and get pictures from the side and all of these things. Step back, and I thought he was gone. He ran off, and I thought, okay, well, I don't know who that is. Then he came running back, for more pictures. It's like, this must be what it's like to be famous. And there we were the next day on the front page of the paper, right? Me with all my 1,000 excuses for how other people, like, well, we don't want to be like pushy of our faith, or, let's just stay inside our church. The larger community, the paper on their own, thought it was awesome. Maybe canon law knows what it's doing. You will be my witnesses to Jerusalem and indeed to the ends of the earth. What does it mean to be a witness? I'd just like to reflect a little bit on that, even particularly in my own weakness, as I just said, really struggling with that. What does it mean to be a witness? What is it that Jesus is telling us right before he leaves? You will be my witnesses. We live in a culture that, we've heard this happening over the last several years. An attempt has been made. We've typically, throughout our history, have enjoyed freedom of religion. It's one of the rights in our Constitution. But people are starting to redefine that and starting to use the phrase freedom of worship, which is nowhere, anywhere in the idea or in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or anything. Freedom of religion. But people are starting to say freedom of worship. Why? Because they want us to stay in here. Freedom of worship means do whatever you want inside your walls of your church. Just don't bring it out here. But Jesus says, you will be my witnesses, not just in your church. You will be my witnesses to the whole town, Jerusalem. And in fact, Jesus says, to the ends of the earth. That involves not just staying in church, as much as we might want to. I talked last week about how at DePaul, what was it? It was the reverence in seeing another person pray that had changed my life. He wasn't doing that in the walls of his church. He was willing to do that in front of other people out in public and be a witness. And it touched people, and it touched me in a way that he probably has zero idea about. You will be my witnesses to the ends of the earth. As I was watching this reporter running around, it was like God had a sense of, it was like God was laughing. It's like it was like, isn't this great? Look, you had your fears about how people were going to respond. This guy is running around and is jacked up about your procession. Then, as God's sense of humor continued over the last 2 weeks or so, I've been reading a couple of books. They are actually both in the Criterion, talking about living our faith in our culture. One of them is by Archbishop Chaput of Philadelphia, and one is by an English professor, great writer, Anthony Esolen. The fascinating thing is I kind of wrapped these books up over the last 2 weeks. Both of them mention in their solutions to how we're going to live our faith in our current culture, guess what both of them mentioned as part of their wrap-up? Processions. I wanted to just read this from Archbishop Chaput's book as he is talking about living our faith in a post-Christian world. If Christ is culture, let the sidewalks be lit with fire on Easter Eve. Let the traffic stop for a column of Christians waving palm branches on a spring morning. Let the streets be blocked off as the faithful gather for a Corpus Christi procession. Then others will know that there is another city in their midst, another commonwealth, one that has its face like the face of angels, turned toward the face of God. I don't think that they think that processions will solve every problem. But being a witness, taking our faith out from beyond the walls of our church, is something that will help our country. And in fact, we saw it. I saw it firsthand. People want it. People are starving for it. Will we let fear keep us in here? Is our understanding of practicing our Catholic faith only what we do here tonight? Will we think about it as a week-long thing, or is it just this hour? You will be my witnesses to Jerusalem and indeed to the ends of the earth. One of the things about being a witness, though, is that it's never easy. While some people are starving to see witnesses and to see our faith lived in the public square, others resist that. And we have to be ready for that. Being a witness is never taking the path of least resistance with our faith. That's what I wanted to do that Sunday afternoon. A part of me wanted to eat lunch in my office in the air conditioning and waste time doing, I don't even, watch a movie clip or something, who knows. Relax, take it easy, don't bring it out. It's never taking the path of least resistance. Being a witness takes, in a sense, it takes courage. It takes energy, it takes effort, it takes intentionality. We have to want to be a witness. We have to claim it. Right? St. John Paul II said, "Do not be afraid to go out into the streets and into public places." Do not be afraid. But we are afraid, right? We are afraid. We have to summon the courage to get over that. And as we think about being witnesses, summoning the courage, choosing to be intentional about it, not just having it be something that I do in church and then leave, I think a good question for us to ask would be, do other people think of me as a witness to Jesus Christ? When they see me, when they hear me, when they see the things that I talk about, when they see the things that I share with other people on Facebook or Twitter or social media, when they see the things that I email about, when they see the way that I live my life, do they think of Jesus? And that's not to say that we always need to be walking around and telling everyone, hey, I just helped that poor person because of Jesus. Or I just did this because of Jesus. It's not it. We know that. We know that's not what it is. But I think we can all elevate our witness game. I think we can all be more effective witnesses. I think there's more that we can do. There's more things that we can... Is there an article that you can share with someone or with your friends? Is there an email that you could send out? Hey, this story really touched me. You all are my friends. I just wanted to share it with you. Or here's a homily I read from Archbishop Tobin that really moved me, and I just wanted to share it with all of you. How hard is that? Right? But we sit back in fear. We're like, it's never been more easy. I actually went to New Zealand when I was a couple of years a priest. I talked at a Eucharistic conference and talked about, St. Paul, if he had social media, do you think he'd use it? Yeah. Right? You got 1 billion people on there. Right? 1 billion people. All it takes to share the gospel with your friends and family now is to click the share button. That's it. One click. Great homily, great article, great thing, great video. Share. And then all of your friends and family know that you believe Jesus Christ is real without you pushing it on them. You're just saying, hey, I liked this. This moved me. And I follow and am friends with a lot of really good people, and I don't see hardly any of that. I think it's because of fear. We're afraid of what people will think. We're afraid of what other people will say about us. We're just afraid. But Jesus says, look, be my witnesses. I'm leaving. I'll be with you in sacrament. Absolutely. But you now will literally stand in place of me, and you will be my witnesses. You will be the advertisement for what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Either it will happen because of you, or people will not know and encounter Jesus. Again, thinking and remembering that at times we'll be hated, and a very powerful story that I'd like to kind of wrap up with. My sister's getting married this fall. And she sent me a beautiful email inviting me and asking me if I would preach her wedding this fall. I told her no. No, of course, it was awesome, right? It was awesome. It's a beautiful email, but then she also took that time to just sort of tell me a lot of things that I had no idea about. She was telling me why she was asking me to preach her homily, which there's competition in my family to preach wedding homilies, right? So we're all, me and my brother Tony, we sit around and wait, wonder who's going to get the call. So, but no, it was beautiful. It really was. And there was a lot of things that caught me off guard and caught me by surprise about being a witness. And she shared, and I didn't know that she had struggled in her faith when she was younger. She started out with that. She talked about how when she was in high school, she was kind of at the point as she was graduating where she was looking for she's like, I love mom and dad. They were awesome, but I was looking for new role models. I was even looking outside of the faith. I was questioning my faith. She said this, in a sense. When you began to serve as a priest, my faith was lukewarm at best. Mom and dad did a great job, but I was looking for a new role model. And I can mark the turn of my faith to a date because I remember you going to daily mass and adoration over Christmas break. So I started going. I also followed your blog and started each of my homework assignments by first watching a homily or reading a post of yours. I watched you being persecuted by groups or individuals because of your delivery of tough Catholic teaching. A lot of the times when you share something like that, people will say, keep it in the church, pal. We don't want to hear that. Even Catholics will say, keep that to yourself. We don't want to hear that. And so there's always comments at the blog, and I never really occurred to me that my brothers or sisters would see that stuff. But it's there. And it was just very powerful. But here's what's really important. Here's why I say that. And what should hopefully give us the courage to be witnesses. She ended it basically saying this: seeing you persecuted for what you said lit a fire in my own soul that has spread over time. Lit a fire. The word for witness in Greek is martyr. When we witness, there is an aspect of death. Dying to my own self, my own desire to sit in my office in the air conditioning and eat lunch and have no one bother me and not worry about anybody looking at me. Dying to that. And then also experiencing the death from other people. Many people are starving and say, thank you so much for witnessing, and then other people will fight back, and it's that death too. But Jesus is inviting us in this first reading tonight to a very special call. And I think the question for us to ask is, will we heed it? Will we let Christ transform us into witnesses, overcoming our fears, our anxieties, etc., trusting that His presence in our lives, this presence of the Spirit, will give us everything that we need to do exactly what He asks, which is to be witnesses of His to Jerusalem and indeed to the ends of the earth.